Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are not just scratching the surface. We're going all the way down to the bedrock.
We really are.
Yeah, we're taking a stack of sources here.
Yeah.
So we've got articles, we have critical reviews, production notes, even some scientific fact checks. And we're unpacking all of them to understand the machinery behind one of the most pivotal hours of television history.
It really is one of those hours. It's one of those episodes that when you look back at it, you realize it set the trajectory for literally everything that followed.
Right.
It's the exact moment the show decided what it actually wanted to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's orient ourselves for a second. What is our mission today for you listening? We are focusing our laser beam on Breaking Bad Season 1, Episode 2. The title is Cats in the Bag.
Such a great title.
It is. And if you think the pilot, which, we all know is iconic, if you think that was a chaotic adrenaline rush.
Oh, it totally was.
Yeah, this episode is where the hangover hits. Yeah. It's where the adrenaline wears off, the headache sets in, and the messy, gruesome reality of what just happened starts to solidify.
That's a really great way to put it, actually. The pilot is the crime, and this episode is the consequence.
The consequence, yeah.
Usually in television, you have a pilot that sets up the premise, and then the second episode basically repeats the premise to make sure the audience gets it.
Right, just like hammering it home.
Exactly. But this episode doesn't do that at all. It immediately deconstructs the premise.
So let's set the scene based on the sources we've got lined up. We have the production history, we have critical breakdowns from IGN and the AV Club, and the plot mechanics themselves. And I want to start with a question for you, just looking at the big picture here. What is the vibe shift from Episode 1 to Episode 2? Because looking at these notes, it feels drastic.
Oh, it's totally drastic. The pilot is almost a heist movie in miniature.
Yeah.
It's fast, it's frantic, you have the sirens, you have gas masks, you have explosions.
The pants flying through the air.
Right, the pants. But this episode, which aired on January 27th, 2008, it puts the brakes on. Hard.
Yeah.
It was written by the series creator Vince Gilligan and directed by Adam Bernstein. And it forces the characters and honestly the audience too to just sit in the massive mess they made.
And the critics seem to really love that shift, which is interesting because usually slowing down is kind of TV code for boring.
Right.
But looking at the numbers in our sources here, IGN gave this episode a staggering 9.6 out of 10.
Wow.
I mean, that is incredibly high for the second episode of a brand new series. Usually shows are still, kind of finding their footing.
It is remarkably high. And the AV Club gave it an A-.
There is this fantastic quote from Seth Emanitin over at IGN that I think really nails what we are going to be talking about today.
Oh, let's hear it.
He was discussing the chemistry of the characters, and he said, it's like they're puzzle pieces and their jagged edges aren't even close to matching, but they fit somehow.
Jagged edges. I love that.
Yeah. Because literally nothing about this episode is smooth.
Yeah.
It is all jagged edges, literally and metaphorically. You have the jagged edge of the broken plate, which we'll definitely get to that later, and the jagged edges of Walt and Jesse's relationship.
And that leads us right into the big aha moments we need to look out for in this deep dive. We are definitely going to talk about the infamous bathtub incident.
Oh, man.
Which I know you are excited to unpack because the science behind it is, let's just say, volatile.
Oh, I cannot wait to get into the chemistry of that catastrophe. I have so many questions about hydrofluoric acid that need answering.
We will definitely get there. But we are also going to look at a really fascinating piece of production history regarding the character Crazy 8.
Right.
There is a very specific reason he is in this episode at all, and it actually wasn't the original plan.
That's wild.
It's a perfect example of how happy accidents can totally shape a masterpiece.
See, that is the stuff I absolutely love. The accidents that shape the narrative.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Let's start with the title itself. Cats in the Bag. It sounds like a nursery rhyme. Or maybe something your grandfather would say.
But knowing this show, I have a feeling it's something a bit darker.
Much darker. It's actually a direct cultural reference to a classic 1957 film noir called Sweet Smell of Success.
Okay, I haven't actually seen it, but I know it's legendary for its dialogue. What is the specific connection here?
So in that film, you have a character named J.J. Hunsaker, who is this extremely powerful, very corrupt newspaper columnist. And he asks a character named Sidney Falco about a dirty scheme they are cooking up.
Okay.
He asks him, that means you've got a plan. Can you deliver?
And let me guess, the reply gives us our title.
Precisely. Sidney Falco replies, tonight, before you go to bed, Cat's in the bag and the bag's in the river.
The cat's in the bag and the bag's in the river. Okay, let's unpack this for a second. In the movie, that phrase clearly implies that the problem is solved. It's handled.
Right, it's a done deal. The problem is contained in the bag and disposed of in the river.
Exactly. It implies a perfectly clean resolution. A specific plan executed perfectly. It really implies ultimate competence. And the irony here, the whole reason Vince Gilligan chose this specific title, is that in Breaking Bad, absolutely nothing is in the bag.
Right. The cat is definitely not in the bag, and the bag is definitely not in the river.
No.
It is the complete opposite of a clean resolution.
No.
It's almost like this show is mocking its own characters.
It totally is. It frames the entire episode as a study in absolute failure. They think they have a plan. They think they are living in a slick movie where they can just handle it. But reality just keeps getting in the way.
So let's look at where we left off to really set the context for this whole failed plan.
Yeah.
We are picking up immediately after the pilot. There is no time jump here. We are right there in the panic. Walt and Jesse are in the RV. They've got the gas masks on. They've literally just poisoned 2 drug dealers, Crazy 8 and Emilio, with phosphine gas.
And they are actively driving this massive mobile meth lab back to Jesse's house. Now, a really key detail here that the sources point out, this house used to belong to Jesse's late aunt.
Right, the aunt.
It's a suburban setting. It has a nice lawn. It has neighbors. This isn't some sketchy warehouse in an industrial district. It's a quiet, normal street.
Which just makes the presence of a bullet-riddled RV containing a meth lab and 2 bodies even more jarring. The contrast is immense.
That dissonance is so key to the show's entire visual language.
Yeah.
So they park the RV, they open the door, fully expecting to just drag out 2 corpses.
Just a simple disposal problem.
Right. But here is the twist that kicks the whole episode into gear. What do they actually find?
They find that Emilio is dead, he's gone, but Crazy 8, he is still breathing.
That is the exact moment the clean plan goes completely out the window.
He somehow survived the phosphine gas, which, by the way, is incredibly nasty stuff, but he's alive.
So now Walt and Jesse aren't just dealing with a gross disposal issue, they're dealing with a hostage situation. They have abruptly moved from accidental killers to kidnappers actively contemplating murder.
And this leads us right into what I call the comedy of errors segment of our deep dive. Because you'd think, okay, he's alive, they are criminals, they'll handle it. But they are so bad at this.
They are terrible at it.
So bad.
And that's the absolute brilliance of the writing. It completely deglamorizes the crime. The next day, there's this scene that is almost slapstick comedy, but so incredibly dark. Walt is driving to Jesse's house to figure out what to do, and who does he see?
He sees Crazy 8.
Right. A completely bedraggled Crazy 8 just staggering down the street in the middle of this nice suburb.
The visual here is just wild. You have this terrifying drug dealer, but he's probably half poisoned. His clothes are all messed up. He's stumbling around. Walt pulls up, probably panicking, and tries to get his attention.
He does. And Crazy 8 looks at him, recognizes him, probably as the guy who just gassed him, and tries to run. But he is in absolutely no condition to run. The source material describes it so perfectly. It says he runs into a tree and collapses.
He runs into a tree. You know, in normal action movies, the villain escapes into the night. He scales a giant fence, steals a car. In Breaking Bad, the villain runs into a tree because he's woozy. It's so deeply grounded in reality.
It really is. It strips away the whole myth of the super criminal. He's just a guy who is seriously hurt and disoriented. So Walt has to physically load this unconscious heavy man into the trunk of his car.
Oh, man.
Just imagine the stress of that. This is a mild-mannered high school chemistry teacher manhandling a drug dealer into a trunk in broad daylight, just praying Mrs. Johnson next door doesn't look out her front window.
And then they managed to get him back to Jesse's basement. So now they have a real containment problem. How do they secure him? They don't have police handcuffs. They don't have a holding cell.
They use a bike lock.
A bike lock.
They chain him by the neck to a wooden structural pole in the basement using a heavy-duty U-lock.
Again, the improvisation is just so striking. They aren't using professional cartel gear. They're using whatever junk Jesse literally has lying around his aunt's house. It just highlights how unbelievably unprepared they are for any of this.
Exactly. So now the situation has evolved. They have a corpse in the RV, that's Emilio, and a living witness in the basement, Crazy 8. And this brings us to one of the most crucial psychological turning points in the entire series, the coin toss.
Oh, it was a huge moment.
Yeah.
Because they can't decide what to do. They are completely paralyzed. They are arguing in the kitchen, voices raised, panic really setting in.
They are. Walt suggests disposing of Emilio's corpse using chemical means, hydrofluoric acid.
Which we will get to the messy specifics of that
Oh,
maybe.
we will. But they also realize Crazy 8 is a massive liability. He knows who they are. He knows their faces. He knows where Jesse lives.
So Walt says, we have to flip for it.
Let's just pause on that for a second. We have to flip for it. It is a complete abdication of responsibility. Walt is the one who logically knows Crazy 8 has to die for their own safety, but he simply cannot bring himself to make the active decision. He wants the coin to decide. He essentially wants fate to take the blame.
It's cowardly, isn't it?
Huh.
It's trying to keep his own hands clean while actively planning a murder. So they flip the coin. What is the breakdown of the toss?
Jesse wins the toss.
And what does winning even mean in this twisted scenario?
Yeah.
Usually winning means you get the prize. Here, winning means you get the slightly less traumatizing job.
Right. Winning means he gets to choose his horrible job. And Jesse very quickly chooses to dispose of the corpse.
Which really tells you something profound about Jesse, doesn't it? Dealing with a dead body is incredibly gruesome. It's heavy lifting, it smells, it's disgusting. But it's passive.
Exactly. It's gross, but it is not killing. A corpse is already just an object. By choosing the corpse, Jesse forces Walt into the other role. Walt loses the toss. He is left with the direct task of killing Crazy 8.
This is where it gets really interesting for Walt's character development.
Yeah.
I mean, he just broke bad in the pilot. Sure, he killed those guys in self-defense in the RV. But this is straight up premeditated execution.
That is the absolute key distinction. In the pilot, it was pure reaction, pure adrenaline. Here he has time to think. He has hours to think. He has to actually walk down those basement stairs, look a conscious man in the eye, and end his life. And what we'll see in this episode is that Walt is simply not ready for that. He is not a killer yet.
Let's talk about that internal struggle. Because Walt doesn't just march down there and do the deed. He hesitates. He stalls constantly.
He agonizes over it. He actually prepares to do it at one point.
Yeah.
He prepares to asphyxiate Crazy 8 with a plastic bag. There is this intense shot of him holding the bag, breathing heavily, really trying to psych himself up.
The irony of the title comes back again. Cat's in the bag. He's literally holding the bag.
But he stops. He just can't go through with it. And instead of violence, the pendulum swings wildly to guilt. He starts actively taking care of him.
It's bizarre to watch, right? He's keeping this guy prisoner, chained to a pole, but he's acting like his private nurse.
Yeah.
It's this weird cognitive dissonance.
He brings him food, he makes him a sandwich and actually cuts off the crusts.
The crust.
Right? He brings him water. He provides a bucket for a toilet. He even brings him a roll of toilet paper.
It's like he is desperately trying to hold on to his own humanity while doing something completely monstrous. He wants to believe he is still a good guy, even though he is a man chained by the neck in a basement. There is that moment where Jesse comes back upstairs and asks, is he dead?
And Walt lies to him.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just bargaining with himself. He promises Jesse he will do it tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
He is just buying time.
Hmm.
He is hoping, perhaps, that the problem will somehow magically solve itself, or that he'll magically find another way out without having to pull the trigger.
While Walt is playing nurse and struggling with his conscience in the basement, we have a whole other storm brewing on the home front. Skyler White.
Skyler is such an important character to analyze here. In so many crime dramas, especially from this specific era of television, the wife is just a prop. She's there to be nagging or completely oblivious. But Skyler is highly intelligent. She is intuitive.
She absolutely knows something is off.
Yeah.
Walt is acting weird. He's disappearing at odd hours. He's taking strange phone calls and whispering. So what does she do? She doesn't just sit there waiting. She investigates.
She goes into full detective mode. Jesse had called Walt's home phone earlier in the chaos. That was a huge mistake on his part. Skyler takes that number, which she tracked via star 69 or caller ID, and uses the internet to trace it.
Which, in 2008 was a bit of a novelty for audiences. Seeing that reverse lookup search on a chunky desktop computer, it really places the show in a specific time. And she finds something.
She discovers Jesse Pinkman's social media website.
I love that the source mentions this specifically. It's probably a MySpace page or something very similar. It really dates the show in a charming way, but it also shows exactly how sloppy Jesse is. He's got his entire life online.
So she confronts Walt. She has the printed page. She has the name. Who is this Jesse Pinkman? And Walt is forced to come up with a lie right on the spot.
And this is kind of the birth of the Walt is a bad liar trope. Or maybe the Walt is a surprisingly good manipulator trope, depending on how you look at the results. What is his cover story?
He tells her that Jesse sells him marijuana.
Marijuana. It's such a beautifully small, manageable lie compared to the reality of I am manufacturing crystal meth and I have a hostage locked in a basement.
It really is, and it works, at least partially. It explains the sudden secrecy. It explains the erratic behavior. It even explains the association with a young burnout like Jesse. But it also puts Skyler on an immediate warpath. Because she doesn't just accept it and move on, she decides she needs to confront the source directly.
This scene creates incredible tension. Skyler drives to Jesse's house, the very house where the bodies are currently located.
It creates this classic Hitchcockian suspense. We, the audience, know exactly what is inside that house. We know there's a dead body in the RV and a live hostage in the basement. Skyler does not know any of this.
She confronts Jesse right outside on the driveway. And what is Jesse doing right at that exact moment?
He is actively moving Emilio's body from the RV into the house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Talk about jagged edges. She is angrily yelling at him about selling pot to her husband, and he is frantically trying to hide a literal corpse. He's literally shielding the body with his own body while she lectures him.
She warns him off. She plays her ultimate trump card. She tells him point blank that her brother-in-law is a DEA agent, Hank.
Yeah, which obviously terrifies Jesse. He probably thinks the raid is imminent right then and there.
But the incredible irony, and the source points this out specifically, is that Skyler does not notice the corpse.
It's right there.
She is so hyper-focused on the moral issue of the marijuana that she completely misses the capital crime happening right under her nose.
It's a huge near miss. But it firmly establishes Skyler as a major force to be reckoned with. She isn't going to make this criminal life easy for Walt. She isn't a passive observer. She's an active participant in the unraveling of Walt's secrets.
Not at all passive. And it reinforces that Walt's two worlds, the criminal underworld and the domestic family life, are on a massive collision course.
Okay, so we have Walt stalling on the murder. We have Skyler closing in on the truth. But we really have to get to the main event of the episode, the disaster that completely defines this hour of television, the bathtub incident.
This is where hard science meets absolute incompetence. And it's where the show firmly proves it has a very strong stomach for gore.
So Walt, being the genius chemist, gave Jesse very specific instructions on how to dispose of Emilio's body. Let's really unpack the science here, because it sounds like dark magic, but it's pure chemistry.
Right. Walt tells Jesse to use hydrofluoric acid. Now, this is a nasty, nasty chemical. It is highly corrosive, but he gives him a very crucial condition along with the acid. He tells him he must buy a bin made of polyethylene.
Polyethylene, a very specific type of plastic. Why? Why does plastic survive this super acid when bone and metal don't?
It's all about molecular structure.
Yeah.
Hydrofluoric acid attacks things that contain silicon, like glass or ceramic, and it attacks many metals. But polyethylene consists of these really long chains of carbon and hydrogen atoms that are incredibly stable and nonpolar. The acid essentially cannot grab onto the molecules to break them apart, so it just sits there harmlessly.
So the plastic is the perfect shield. But Jesse, poor impatient Jesse, he goes shopping. He tries to find this specific bin.
But he fails. He goes to the local hardware store and he just can't find a plastic bin big enough to fit a fully grown man. And Jesse, being Jesse, he gets deeply frustrated. He just wants this horrific chore over with. So he makes a massive assumption.
He looks around and assumes, hey, I have a perfectly good bathtub upstairs. It's big, it's heavy, it's ceramic, it's tough. I take baths in it all the time. Why not just use that?
It is a fatal assumption. He drags the body all the way upstairs, he puts it in the tub, he pours in the gallons of acid, and then he just waits.
And we, the audience, if we know anything about basic chemistry, or honestly, if we just trust Walt's absolute panic when he finds out what Jesse did, we know this is going to go spectacularly wrong.
The visual payoff here is truly iconic television. We are downstairs with Walt. He's standing in the hallway, drinking coffee, just trying to ignore the horror of his current life. And suddenly, the ceiling above him starts to groan. There is this incredibly ominous creaking sound.
And then, crash.
The entire ceiling collapses. The heavy bathtub falls straight through the weakened floorboards.
And it's not just the tub falling, it's the horrific contents of the tub.
The source material describes it vividly as Emilia's liquefied remains completely spilling onto the hallway below. It's red, it's sludge-like, there are visceral chunks. It's a straight-up horror movie scene.
It is grotesque. It is absolutely revolting to watch. But it's also, in a very dark, twisted way, kind of funny. Because it's such a spectacular, preventable failure.
It really is. And it perfectly illustrates the fundamental difference between theory and practice, or, more accurately, between Walt and Jesse. Walt knew the exact theory. Hydrofluoric acid will dissolve many things, but not polyethylene. Jesse completely ignored the theory and ended up with a hallway full of human goo.
Walt's reaction to this is it's pure exasperation. He's not even screaming at this point. He isn't vomiting like you'd expect. He's just deeply, profoundly disappointed. He looks at the massive mess and just delivers that line about the chemistry.
It's a teaching moment straight from hell. He looks at Jesse amidst all this horrific carnage and says calmly, hydrofluoric acid will dissolve many things, but not polyethylene. It's like he's grading a failed high school test paper, but the test paper is a dissolved human being.
I noticed in the sources we use for this deep dive, there is also links to Mythbusters. Did they actually test this specific scenario? Because honestly, it looks almost too effective on the show.
They absolutely did. In the 2013 season, they did a dedicated Breaking Bad special. It was episode 206. They really wanted to see if hydrofluoric acid would actually eat through a ceramic bathtub and the wooden floorboards like that.
And what were the results? Could it happen in real life? Could we actually replicate this disaster?
Well, without completely spoiling the whole Mythbusters episode for you, let's just say that Breaking Bad took some pretty heavy creative liberties for the sake of the visual impact. The acid is incredibly corrosive, yes, but it takes a very long time. It wouldn't eat through a heavy cast iron tub and a thick wooden floor that quickly or that dramatically.
So it was definitely exaggerated for the drama of TV.
Definitely. But the core concept, the idea that different materials react very differently to specific acids, that is entirely sound science.
Yeah.
Honestly, the thematic point is what truly matters here.
Right, it's the visual metaphor that matters.
Yeah.
It perfectly symbolizes the complete and utter collapse of their plan. The cat is definitely not in the bag. The cat is melted all over the hallway floor.
Precisely. It is the physical, tangible manifestation of their terrible situation. A messy, highly toxic disaster that has literally destroyed the foundation of the house. They have quite literally melted a hole in the floor of their one supposed sanctuary.
Now, I want to pivot a bit to the production side of things, because as intentionally messy as the plot is, the actual production of this episode was incredibly tight. But you mentioned way earlier that Crazy 8 wasn't actually supposed to be here.
This is a truly fascinating behind-the-scenes detail. In the original outline for the show, Crazy 8 and his cousin Emilio were supposed to die much, much earlier. The original plan was likely for both of them to just die in the pilot or immediately after. The whole hostage in the basement arc wasn't the main plan at all.
So why did they decide to keep him alive? Why force Walt to deal with this incredibly tense hostage situation for multiple episodes?
It was entirely because of the actor, Max Arciniega.
Really? Just based on his performance?
Yes. The producers watched his performance during the filming of the pilot. They saw what he did with the character, the genuine menace, but also the underlying humanity he brought to it. And they just loved it.
That's so cool to hear. So they literally changed the trajectory of the story because the actor was just too good to kill off yet.
They actively begged Vince Gilligan to let him stay longer. And think about how profoundly that one production decision changed the entire show. If Crazy 8 dies immediately in the RV, we completely lose this entire episode of intense moral struggle. We lose all those quiet, tense conversations in the basement that happen later. We lose the slow, agonizing, believable transformation of Walt.
It definitely slows down the pacing of the season, but in a very necessary good way. It forces the character development to happen organically.
It forces Walt to confront the actual living individual he is planning on killing. It's not just some faceless bad guy in a shootout. It's a real person he has to talk to and feed sandwiches to. That incredible emotional depth only exists because they realized they needed to keep Max Arciniega around.
It really is a testament to being totally adaptable in the creative process. Sometimes the absolute best storylines come from deviating completely from the original outline. So looking at where this specific episode stands in the pantheon of Breaking Bad episodes, we have some critical rankings here in the sources.
We do. The Ringer, in their massive definitive ranking back in 2019, they put Cats in the Bag at number 31 out of the 62 total episodes.
Bang in the middle.
Exactly halfway. And Vulture, they ranked it 33rd overall.
That feels incredibly right, doesn't it? It's not the massive, explosive finale. It's not Ozymandias, which everyone always points to as the best episode of television ever. But it is the crucial structural beam that holds the entire house up.
It's what you'd call a workhorse episode. It does all the heavy emotional lifting of moving the characters from accidental criminals to people actively dealing with a life of crime. You simply cannot have the massive emotional highs of the later seasons without this foundational grounding work. It firmly establishes the real stakes. It establishes that actions have consequences, deeply messy, highly acidic consequences.
Before we wrap up the plot analysis completely, there is one last loose end the outline mentions that we need to touch on. It's a very small detail, but it feels incredibly ominous.
The scene out in the desert.
Right. While Walt and Jesse are actively dealing with the horrific bathtub disaster back at the house, the camera suddenly cuts away back to the desert where they cooked the meth.
It's this beautiful, wide, quiet shot. We see two young Native American children just playing in the scrubland. They're running around, totally innocent, and then they find something half buried in the dirt.
They find the gas mask.
Walt's specific gas mask from the pilot, the one he threw away in a panic when he thought the cops were coming.
The young girl picks it up and actually puts it on her face.
It is a genuinely chilling visual image. This stark symbol of industrial toxicity and crime is now literally a toy for an innocent child.
This is just classic Vince Gilligan foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Walt and Jesse think they're cleaning up. They're melting bodies, they're scrubbing floors, but they left a massive glaring piece of physical evidence just sitting out in the sand.
It perfectly reinforces the core theme of the show. You can never truly clean up everything. There is always a trace left behind. There is always a loose thread that can completely unravel the whole sweater. The desert remembers exactly what happened out there.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's zoom out to the big picture. We have a title that openly mocks the very idea of a clean plan. We have a supposed protagonist who is too paralyzed to actually kill to protect himself, and a sidekick who flunks basic chemistry class with genuinely disastrous results.
And we have the crucial introduction of Skyler as a highly formidable active investigator in her own right.
Those jagged edges we talked about earlier really are the defining theme here. Walt and Jesse do not fit together smoothly, and the criminal life definitely doesn't fit Walt smoothly yet.
And yet, despite all of that, they are completely stuck together. The chemistry, both the literal science and their interpersonal dynamic, it forces them to remain locked in this reaction. They are deeply bonded by the mutual trauma of what they are failing to do properly.
I want to bring it all back to that sweet smell of success quote to close us out today. The quote was, "Tonight, before you go to bed, the cat's in the bag and the bag's in the river."
Think about exactly how this episode ends. Do they go to bed with a neatly resolved plan?
Not even close. It's a nightmare.
No. They go to bed with a giant gaping hole in the second floor ceiling. A hallway completely full of toxic biological sludge, a live hostage still chained by the neck in the basement who Walt explicitly promised to kill but didn't. And the DEA, via Skyler's brother-in-law, is completely unknowingly sniffing around the outer perimeter of their lives.
It really asks a big provocative question for you listening. Is planning even remotely possible for these two characters? Or is this entire show just going to be them wildly reacting to the disastrous messes they constantly create?
I think we are clearly seeing that they are purely reactive at this stage. They are frantically surfing a massive wave of chaos, and they really haven't learned how to swim yet. They are just desperately trying to keep their heads above the acid.
A wave of chaos and hydrofluoric acid. Not a great mix.
Definitely not. Highly discouraged.
Well, that is our deep dive into Cats in the Bag. An incredibly messy, absolutely brilliant, truly horrifying episode that proved Breaking Bad was never going to be afraid to slow down and really look at the gore.
And it definitively proved that if you are ever going to dissolve a body, you really need to listen to your high school chemistry teacher.
Always double check for the polyethylene stamp on the bottom of the bin. Just good, solid life advice right there.
Essential.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We will catch you on the next one, where we might just finally find out what happens to the actual cat in the bag.
Or the bag in the river.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.